So here I am looking at another Helio X27 tablet. In fact, this tablet I have already pretty much reviewed, so this is going to be a different video here. It's going to be a lot shorter, just cover the differences. It's the Alldocube M5X. Now, I reviewed the M5, and this tablet here is basically exactly the same. The only thing that has changed is we now have a Helio X27 instead of the X20 on the original model. So if you want all those full details, their full complete review, then please do check out that video because everything else is exactly the same. So it does have dual SIM LTE and it does not have LTE band 20. It's got the Chinese LTE bands, and this was one of the cons with the original M5 model that I reviewed. It has room for a micro SD card, so dual SIMs, you can make phone calls, text messages, and even run WhatsApp, of course. So I'm going to keep this video as brief as possible, just not to repeat myself here, but the screen, I wanted to point out that it is a little bit brighter here on this unit for some reason. So when I measured the screen brightness on the M5 back in July last year when I did the full review, it got a brightness of only 190 lux, which was not good. But here we have 230, 220, so it is up. They have increased the brightness either via software or the hardware, but this the same screen. It's a non-laminated panel. There's a gap of about 1.5 millimeters. And it is maybe a little bit distracting. You get more reflections. It does have a pre-applied screen protector. The touch response is good, so 10 touch points, and it does feel a little bit smoother here. You can see when you bring this up, sometimes you get a little bit of lag, and this just tends to be the chipset. The Helio X27, the X23, the X20s, they're all a little bit laggy. I'm pretty much done checking out this chipset before I go crazy because I've seen so many of them now. I only have one tablet left, which is the Voyo i8, which is in fact a 4:3 ratio tablet with an iPad screen. That's the last one I'm going to check out of the Helio X27. So I will run through just a few benchmarks, because there are a couple of differences here to note. That the faster chipset, which has a faster turbo, this one's a 10 core, but the highest turbo it can do is 2.6 gigahertz, which is up over the 2.1 I think it is on the Helio X20, but we still get an AnTuTu score here lower than that one. I don't know why this is and why this happened. And here is the speeds now of the internal storage. So it is using eMMC 4.5.1. Again, no changes whatsoever to the M5. So they are identical tablets. It's just the chipset is the only difference. Wireless speeds did check out. They're more or less pretty much exactly the same there. And yes, we do have GPS on board. And you get around 4 meters of accuracy. It's not wonderful GPS performance. The first lock took about a minute, which was a little slow. And checking out the wireless signal strength, so this was on the 2.4 gigahertz band and even on 5G. I've noticed that there's no real issues. This is the furthest away from my router. It still works. Of course, the speeds do drop off. The same goes for the LTE speed. So here in Spain, I'm able to get onto the 1800 megahertz LTE band, which I think is band 1 or 3? And it works perfectly fine here. But you don't have LTE band 20. You are missing a lot of bands. It does only have a Chinese modem on this one here. So bear that in mind when you're buying it. And again, no surprises here, just like the M5, that we are missing a security level 3 on Widevine. So Netflix, you will only get it in standard definition, nothing more than that. So no full HD or HD Netflix, sadly, because it doesn't have the level 1 cert. So battery life, more or less about the same as the M5 again. So please do check that review. I'm just kind of repeating myself here. It's about 7 to 8 hours max that you can get. You can see I almost got about 7 hours here. I think the end result was, yes, just over 7 hours, and this was about 40% on data and 60 on wireless. So if you're more on wireless, you won't use as much. And just to quickly show you here that the ROM that it comes with is completely stock Android 8 ROM with a security patch level of July 2018. So it's old, and it will probably never get an update. So bear that in mind. You won't get updates. And it does come with a phone dialer there, as you can see, something that the Mi Pad 4 is missing. And we do have, of course, FM radio as part of the hardware on this, and it does work well. Now, when you look at the general performance of the tablet, exactly like the Helio X27 tablets I've been looking at, and the X20, the X23s, they all suffer from a little bit of lag. It's just not the ideal kind of performance. You want something like the Mi Pad 4 with the Snapdragon 660. That's just a lot smoother. So I just bring up my website here just to demonstrate. This is quite an image-heavy website that even the Chrome scrolling sometimes is just a little slow here. You can see just to render and start to load in those images, it does play a little bit of a catch up there. But overall, I mean, when you click one of the links, I'll just bring this one up right here, that it should pop up pretty quick. The loading time seems to be reasonable. It's just that it's not going to be the smoothest and fastest experience. And that really is noticeable too. Once you start to set up, for example, split screen, the performance then again starts to degrade even more. So I'll just open something else up here. And just like the original M5, that PUBG, it's, I'd say, maybe a little bit smoother. It gets a little bit of lag, a little bit choppy, just like all the other Helio X27 tablets. Playable, yes, on the lowest settings, but just be prepared for a bit of lag here and there, especially when you're in a big firefight and when there's smoke on the screen and things like that. It does tend to get a little bit choppy at times. Alright guys, so that is the M5X, which is basically exactly the same as the M5 that I reviewed. So please do check that review if you want more detail, you want a sample of the speakers, the webcam. So overall, I feel for the price, yeah, you do get a lot on offer here. It's going to be good for light media, things like that. But remember, we don't have Netflix in full HD. There's no LTE band 20 on this. The speakers, the loudness is okay, but they don't sound particularly wonderful. Webcam quality is not wonderful either. The screen's alright, but it's not fully laminated there. But we do have voice calls that can be made on this, and depending on where you live, you've got LTE, of course, dual SIM, micro SD card support, Android 8 with a stock ROM with no bloatware, which is really good, FM radio, GPS, and a battery life of maybe up to about 7 to even 8 hours. So that's the positive side of things. However, I do think that the TechTablets T20, that one's the best MediaTek Helio X27 tablet that I have reviewed, with a fully laminated display with the same exact screen resolution as this one. And then of course we also have Xiaomi's Mi Pad 4 Plus, which I believe is probably one of the best ones in terms of performance because it has a much faster chipset, the Snapdragon 660. Thank you so much for watching this short review, and as mentioned, please do check my Alldocube M5 review, which goes into a lot more detail. This tablet here is just a little bit more faster in real world use. That is basically it.